trip to Cebu where I had the opportunity to work with an amazing team. It was an incredible experience, and I'm really thrilled about the upcoming activities and job fair we have planned for all of you. So, and also, oh, is there um do we have like technical difficulties? Oh, we're all good? Awesome. Okay. So as I've mentioned earlier, um if you're in Cebu and seeking a fantastic work environment surrounded by, positive individuals, I highly recommend considering a position in Tache. Our location is conveniently situated, making it even more appealing. You can totally rock that work life balance. Imagine this, guys, hustling hard on weekdays and hitting the beach on weekends. I did that the last time I went there. So that's exactly what I did during my time there. And it was, it was the perfect combo of work and play. And I can't wait for you to experience it too. So if you are interested, please reach out to us through our Facebook page or click on the link provided by our team in the comments section. All right. Now I am pretty excited for our topic this week. So in today's fast paced and ever evolving world, it's essential to stay ahead and seize every opportunity for career advancement. And that's why we're here to guide you on a journey of self-discovery and help you unlock your full potential. So, guys, are you curious about, what goes on behind the scenes in a company when, it comes to keeping everything in check? Well, get ready because, we will pick into the fascinating world of compliance. So, picture this, you guys. Every organization needs someone to ensure that, they're playing by the rules, right? That's where the compliance role comes into play. It's like having our very own rule enforcer, making sure that the company follows all the guidelines, regulations, and ethical standards. So, if you're wondering what exactly those compliance folks do and how they fit into the company puzzle, stick around. Our speaker today will give you an overview of the compliance role, their typical responsibilities, and how it all functions within a company. So, without further ado, let me introduce our speaker for this topic. He is a highly accomplished finance professional with expertise in U.S. brokerage and banking practices. He holds uh, FINRA securities licenses, including Series 7, 63, and 24. Known for his meticulous attention to detail and strategic thinking, he is sought after for his insights and guidance in the financial industry. His commitment to continuous learning and unwavering professionalism make him a valuable asset to any organization. So please welcome with me, Sir Paolo. Hi, Sir Paolo.
Hey, Jamie. Thanks for that, and good
Hi.
evening, everyone. It's Happy Monday.
Yes, I'm not sure if there's something wrong with your camera, Sir Pao, but we can see you in the screen. We
Oh,
can
hold
only
on.
see the black and yeah, black screen lang siya.
How's that?
No, sir. Ayan, there you
There we go. Thanks for letting me know, Jamie. I think that should be great. So, how's everyone doing?
can you hear? Oh, hold on.
Yep, I heard that one.
Yes, yeah.
Hey, Jesse. Yep, seeing some of the comments come in.
Yes, and we're pretty excited to discuss this topic, Sir Pao. I'm not sure if Is it ton or pow? Because in your screen it says ton.
Oh, to be honest, either is fine. It's just short for Paulo
Oh,
Antonio,
okay.
so either some go with
Oh, I
Pao, some go with
see.
Ton.
Oh, now I get it. Because I could because my introduction is Pao, and then they'll see that the ton, so they might be confused. But anyway, thank you so much for guesting on our show. So without further ado, sir, can we I would like to ask the first question. So, could you provide an overview of the compliance role, including its typical responsibilities and how it functions within a company?
Well, actually, I think how you introduced it earlier is actually right on the money. So, in general, when we say compliance, it's just all about ensuring that the adequate controls and supervision is in place to comply with the rules and policies set by external regulators and also internal leadership by the firm itself. So, in my field specifically, when we say compliance, this covers certain functions like electronic surveillance. So we keep an eye on any emails coming in and out of the company server, chat, anything within the company's chat systems, even company social media. And we also take a look at reviewing and approving marketing materials as well as conducting record keeping audits. So, are we keeping client records complete, on file, preserved within the necessary time period? I think that's some of the broad strokes of the compliance field.
Right. And professionals in quality and compliance roles face unique challenges when it comes to career growth in today's ever-changing, landscape. So what are the some of the key challenges that you can mention, Sir Pao, about key challenges professionals in this roles face when it comes to career expansion?
I think one thing that comes to the top of my head when we say challenges in the compliance field is operation scalability. What we mean by that is picture this: when a company grows, they have more clients, you're going to need more employees, whether it's the frontline customer service, back end operations, marketing. And with that, there's a lot more that comes into your field as a compliance officer that you need to keep on track of. So, how we address that is, well, you need to take a look at how technology can be a force multiplier, in lieu of just keeping adding more personnel, more compliance officers. So, what vendors are available for us to make our job easier? One other challenge is finding the necessary exposure for yourself when it comes to working with other fields or other departments. Like, for example, we need to take a look at tech. So, how do we onboard new employees? How do we keep their network secure? How does operations or customer service do business? What are the unique risks that they have? Or what about our marketing team? How do they conduct their business? What platforms are they using? Are we keeping track of those for proper record keeping and oversight? Uh, and I guess one challenge as well with, and I feel like this one would be common for compliance as a whole, regardless of your field, is finding and setting the KPIs. So that what are the key performance indicators for your compliance field? How would you say that your role or your team within compliance is meeting the goal if you don't set that goal? And sometimes setting that goal means taking a look at what's unique for your firm, your industry, and understanding how that can be translate to realistic KPIs.
Um, so basically, Sir Pao, you're in overall in its department, right? Is it safe to say that you basically manage each department's growth?
I wouldn't say manage, maybe have a little bit of oversight or have a little bit of role in taking a look at those departments. So how are we keeping making sure that they follow the rules set by
Mm-hmm.
the company and our regulators? So yeah, so a little bit of involvement with everyone is common. So
Right.
I think that's one challenge, that you need to be well-rounded and well
Mm-hmm.
networked to be able to work with all those different departments.
Right. So, for example, Sir Pao, you're a dedicated professional in this role, committed to upholding standards and ensuring everything runs smoothly within your organization. But as you navigate your career path, you can help. sometimes you can help but wonder, how can you identify new opportunities for career growth within your organizations?
Well, I think that's a good question, Jamie. And I think what's critical for identifying new opportunities or even potential areas of opportunities is you really need to know what's unique for your firm and what's unique for your industry. So,
Mm-hmm.
what kind of risks and trends are specific, whether you're in the healthcare service, in the legal profession, or in financial services? Like what new development in technology is could expose you to unique sets of risks. And
Mm-hmm.
one saying that I also like to believe in is don't work in silos. You need to take the time to know what's going on in the other side of the fence. So I mentioned a lot of other departments earlier. How do they do business? So sometimes that could be
Mm-hmm.
setting up informal meet and greets just to get to know the other who's on the other side of the network or the other end of the video call. Aside from the formal introductions when you join a firm, so having that one-on-one setting to better understand what do they do and help them understand what you do would help you know what if there's any opportunities that could be upcoming. So making yourself known to stand out in the right way with other teams and other line of business goes a long way. And lastly, even just having that conversation with your manager or your supervisor, just make your plans know that this is the direction I want to move my career towards. Because the
Mm-hmm.
tendency, speaking from someone who was previously a supervisor or manager, I want to have my employees under me succeed. And sometimes
Mm-hmm.
if the tendency is, oh, I want you to progress in this way, but I also want to encourage them to talk to me. Like, is this what your plans for yourself are, or did you have your own plans and I should be helping you do that? So uh, just making your plans known to your supervisor manager would let them know that, oh, this guy is looking for opportunities in this field. If this comes up, I should probably let him know.
Right. Basically, Sir Pao, you ensures that every product or every team meets the highest standards and adheres, to regulatory requirement. But here's the thing: you want to take for example, for those who are in this kind of role already, who are watching right now, you want to take your career to the next level and expand your growth. So, in addition to like technical knowledge, what are some of the essential skills and competencies that professionals in quality and compliance should develop to expand their careers? This is for all who are watching us right now, who's in the same field as yours.
I think the one of the most common skills that would be useful in the compliance field is learning how to extract raw data and then format that into readable reports. So it's I can't really name a specific software since that's fully depends on the company, whether your company's using a different CRM, a customer relationship management tool, could be Salesforce, Redtail, or even something proprietary. So, with part of compliance and quality, so you get a ton of raw data every day, right? Whether that's related to customer information, your firm statistics, or other numbers. So, how do you translate that to a report that you can present to leadership, and then eventually transition to an action item? So one other skill that is very important is project management, and I think that's some doubly important from a remote work standpoint because you need to be able to keep track of what's your deliverables, what's the different deliverables
Yeah.
between different team members, how do you set deadlines, right? You're not,
Mhm.
and that's doubly the challenge when you're not being able to meet up in a room. So there needs to be a way to easily monitor accountability.
Right. Oh my gosh, project management is my weakness. So I'm really glad that there are some people that who really does that. And so about being, aware of emerging trends and technologies in quality and compliance is key to staying on top of your game, right? So I
Mhm.
understand that, by keeping up with the latest advancements, you can future proof your career in this area and become an invaluable assets to your organization. So Sir Bao, here's my question. Like, what are some of the emerging trends and technologies in quality and compliance that professionals, should be aware to stay relevant in the modern landscape?
I think so. What I think something that's the most common trend, especially from compliance and financial services, is almost always technology related, right? So, and what one thing that we are taking a look at is how cybersecurity is eventually overlaps with risk management, tech, and compliance. So, knowing the different ways that your company can potentially be compromised and how you can keep it secure is always at the forefront of some discussions. And in fact, some regulators are considering cybersecurity as essentially being part of a compliance program. And ultimately, that also brings us up to the role and the risk of AI, such as AI tools such as ChatGPT. So, for it can in under the right guidance, under the right supervision, it gives a prop. It is an effective tool for productivity, but how do you also outweigh that, or rather counterbalance that with uh, keeping your network secure? Because for that tool to function, you need to input information, and okay, how do we control what information it gets, that it's not proprietary or private information that needs to be restricted? So I think one saying there is, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So before you get deep
Right.
into that, before you get deep into that, you need to have the proper processes and controls in place.
Right. And for example, Sir Pao, you're a seasoned professional in the, realm of quality and compliance, equipped with, wealth of knowledge and expertise. But here's the exciting part. You're eager to explore new horizons and broaden your career, right? So how
hmm
can they, or for those who are watching us right now, how can they leverage their existing expertise to transition into the areas such as risk management, as what you've mentioned earlier, process improvement, and strategic planning?
Well, if you're already you're in compliance or in quality assurance, and you're wanting to further specialize into one of those three fields, I guess it's kind of going to come down to, hey, do your job, because being a compliance officer means having a little bit of expertise in all those three fields. We put those together, and that's essentially what makes a good compliance program. I guess one thing I'd like to leave with is, you need to take some time to reflect and understand what you really want to do. And sometimes part of that is knowing what you don't want to do. So as you do the role, do your job, do explore the different aspects that make up a good compliance program, you start to learn, this is what I'm good at, or this is what I like to do, or this is what I can do but I don't like to do. And once you know that, it gets easier for you to plan things 5 or 10 years in the future. And I'd like to reiterate again the importance of properly networking and making your plans known to your direct report, whether you mean your supervisor, your manager, so that you can plan ahead together on your career track.
Right. I'm just curious as well, Sir Pao. Are there any specific certifications or training programs that professionals in this role, pursue to enhance their career prospects and increase their market value?
Oh, that's a good question, Jamie. And in fact, I noticed that question a lot on Reddit, like on PH Careers. So, how do you upskill? How do you get your additional certifications? And actually, that can be a bit unique on what your industry is. So, for example, if you're in the financial services sector or you work with a bank, one important certification there is the CAMS certification, so the Certified Anti-Money Laundering Specialist. For others, such as my fiance, she took an MBA. So that's helping with her business insights, case studies, and project management skills, as well as being the ability to network with other professionals taking up an MBA. And even for something that's a bit more general, just even taking some mini courses to develop and learn Microsoft Excel, because as simple as it is, it's a very powerful data organization and report
I agree.
generation tool.
I agree. Yeah, yeah. But you've mentioned as well, Sir Pao, that you've mentioned a lot of time the word networking, and I want to
hmm
highlight that because um people would need to understand why is it important. So can you tell us how important is networking for professionals in quality and compliance roles, and what strategies can they use to build a strong professional network?
Right. So networking is important because it lets you learn what are the best practices and how do they interpret certain rules. Because in my field, at least, sometimes the rules can some is often very specific, but in sometimes, especially when it's concerning new regulation, it's more of a very broad rule. So. Uh, it helps where you're able where you have a strong network of professionals, maybe with other firms or maybe even with the regulators themselves, so that you can get different insights on how do they interpret that rule, what actions do they take to protect themselves on that rule, right? So I think in my field alone, right now I can speak to three different chief compliance officers, two former or current regulators, and even some of my alumni from my past university organization, so that we can discuss the latest happenings in the compliance field. So it doesn't hurt to, even just again, like what I mentioned earlier, just having quick meet and greets, getting to know different people in your organization, so that even by the when the time comes that you're moving to a different organization or from a different, even to a different team, you still maintain those networks to be able to exchange information and insights.
Right, and I think networking is really powerful when it comes to building your career growth, and at the same time connecting to different people in the same industry. And also, Sir Pao, you've mentioned earlier how important, or how it's kind of difficult to really work on the project management while you're working from home. But with the rise of the remote work and virtual teams, how can professionals like you in this industry adapt to these changes and continue your growth?
Right. So yeah, with all that involved, it really comes down to knowing what vendors are available to you and what some of our key software providers for your organization, or even some those that aren't part of your organization. So sometimes something that came up during my network is there was this different tool that the RTR firm was using that theirs wasn't, and we were able to exchange best practices, make that introduction to use this tool together. So it's with remote work, it becomes very important that you are able to leverage the technology. So what software lets you track different projects, or which lets you more do your job more effectively. So, and that's what will what will let you properly adapt to those changes when with your career growth. So, and I think making that investment. So sometimes you really have to take the time to meet with the vendors. Sometimes it takes more than one day just to go through the proper product demonstration before you're able to fully adapt it. And it can be a bit time consuming, but it's a worthy investment.
Right, and I do understand that, and I totally get it. But we do have like one question in on our Facebook, Sir Pao. What she's asking, what soft and hard skills should someone in your field have? Please share some tips.
Well, I think sometimes that's a good question, and I think the most important thing is knowing when something can be bendable or versus when it cannot, and it cannot be breakable. So we're fond of that saying, right? When you say certain rules can be bendable, but they can never be breakable. So I guess one soft skill that you need to know is how do you say no, right? Especially when you're saying someone no, that like say a senior manager or even a vice president on within their department. But from a compliance perspective, no, it's just not something that can be implemented. So you need
Oh,
to
that's
be
interesting. Mhm.
so you need to be one, of course, you need to be tactful. Two, you also need to make sure that you're making the right call. And part of that is, again, you can leverage your supervisor, your manager, or your network, that you so that you can
Mm-hmm.
confidently say that, well, industry wide, they're not doing what you're doing because it's something
Mm-hmm.
that brings us into compliance trouble. So as simple as that sounds, you need to also understand, but have a little bit of empathy to understand that, okay, maybe they're insisting on it because it's critical to their goals, critical to their own departmental KPIs. So you need to be able to understand them and then help them understand where you're coming from as well, and even be able to cite the resources you're using or the references.
Right. And speaking of skills, because we're talking about skills right now, can what are do you think, Sir Pao, what are some strategies you can employ or they can employ to continuously improve processes, procedures and overall quality of within their organization? Because to be honest, it's really difficult. I've tried to do that on my own before, but it's really, really difficult. You really need to do like a better, you have this specific skills for you to do the right thing. But is there any strategies that you can share with us that that they can use in the future, especially if you're in this kind of role?
Uh, that's a good question, Jamie. So, I guess personally for process improvement, it's just kind of come naturally for me. But what breaking down uh, how to be mini actionable items is, well, one, you don't necessarily have to be the SME, right? So when you're building up a process or you're trying to understand a process, uh, you need to identify who's the SME, who's the person who owns that process, that can help break it down for you or for your team to better understand where what the point of it is, what was the rationale behind building that process, uh, and also you need to get feedback. So when you need to get by feedback, you want to get feedback from the different stakeholders who are involved with that process. So eventually, when it comes to a process, there's someone is the user, so they're the people using that process, and who is impacted by that process. So at the end of that, everything, who is the most impacted? Is that your customer? Is that someone who's using the report? And ultimately, what's the different feedbacks from the user and the end user standpoint? And that's where you can figure out what are the different pain points. So that's essentially your step one. What's the pain point? And then you involve your SME to better explain, okay, how can we address these pain points? How can we overcome them? What adjustments need to be made or can be made? And then you move on eventually to the testing phase. So you test out the new process. Is it working? Did it address some of the pain points, or are we still there, or are we still back to square one? So kind of you make two steps forward, but you made one step back. But at the end result, is you either you learn a better way of doing things, or you understand what at least in that process needs to be fixed.
Hmm. I think it's a lot of work when you enter in that kind of role. But Sir Paul, can you provide some examples or success stories of professionals in this role who successfully expanded their careers in the modern landscape? Because I'm sure that everyone here that are watching right now is very interested in this kind of role. Um, yeah, can you provide some samples?
Sure. I think, well, just starting from those who are outside the role, aiming to transition in the role, I think ultimately, if you plan to be in compliance, you're choosing to be an SME in your chosen field, because naturally, if you want to have that credibility to enforce compliance, you need to be an expert yourself, right? To be able to, for others, when you tell them that, oh, this is how things should be done, or this isn't how things should be done, then you have that credibility to set that standard. I think I had this colleague. We only worked for a month, but I could see how that she was really good at answering everything compliance related and having that gravitas that when she says something, you immediately understand. Okay, she's been around the block. She's been in the financial field for years, and I think how I consider her a success is that when she moved out of our team from compliance, is that she was part of the she her new job was at the regulator firm, so she's part of the regulators now. And then we kind of joke around that I hope next we talk it's not because you're telling us we did something wrong. Did something wrong. So yeah, so that with compliance there's different avenues of success. So you could stay within your team, become a senior compliance officer like how I've seen others in the past, or you could be part of the regulatory organization itself, because you've had that credibility and expertise to the point that you're telling other compliance officers how to run their programs.
Right. And you know what, Sir Pao? I can imagine a lot of pressure on this role on how you manage the compliance and all. So I am I'm quite curious actually. How do you manage all those compliance that that you've been receiving for every day of working? How do you manage that? Because I know it's kind of stressful for you. So how do you manage that?
Well, I guess what just one task at a time. But it one thing I like to do is I always before I start my day, I always prioritize. So you'll always have a pipeline of tasks to do that you need to do every day, but then you need to just put it in a quadrant. Essentially, what is high risk, and what is time sensitive versus what is low risk and also not time sensitive. And then you work yourself through that list, and then it helps lessen the stress, and it help and avoid the paralysis. So sometimes you can get you can feel overwhelmed and
Right.
paralyzed because you don't know where to start, right? So once you have that in order, it gets easier to go through it. And to be honest, sometimes it feels like when you have when I play my video games, you have like this quest list, right? So as you
Mhm.
slowly put a check on all those, it helps manage some of the stress.
Right. And we have another question from Facebook. She said, "Hi, Sir Pao, what are your recommendations for alternative career paths or job roles that individuals holding FINRA licenses could explore?"
Alternative job roles. So, well, just to give some bit of background, the FINRA license is really just all about you've understood the rules and regulations concerning the U.S. brokerage services industry. So there's different type of licenses for different types of products, or if it's supervisory level. But for someone who wants to transition out of that, but have the skills that can be used from previous experience, I think the what comes to my mind is definitely working with some of the bigger banks. So some of the firms and principles with brokerage firms translate easily to the banking sector. I've known some individuals also to make that jump from who've had the licenses and use those skills in setting up their own businesses as well as as individuals, using what they've learned from the different types of securities uh, to as a foundation.
Right. And you know what? All throughout our discussion, Sir Pao, it lands into something like you guys are problem solvers, basically. Right. So how can professionals like you in this field develop strong problem solving and decision making skills to address complex challenges?
I guess that eventually comes down to well, one, experience. Two is also knowing when. I think under this is an important skill for a compliance officer to have, is when to admittedly say that I'm not sure, or I can't. If you're not 100% confident that you can say that something can or cannot be allowed, that sometimes you need to know that you need to back off and let me do some research first, or let me make a few phone calls first, whether you're going to ask the regulators directly, ask another a member of your team. just so because sometimes your approval or lack of approval can have pretty major implications for the company.
Right. And we also have another question here. What are some misconceptions people have about quality and compliance, and how do you address them? So, what are the common misconceptions, Sir Pao?
Common misconceptions. Well, that's an interesting question, and I don't think I'm not sure what do some people think that compliance does or doesn't do. I guess maybe well something that does come my way is we're not very expert editors, so I think sometimes when we get certain requests to review marketing or advertising materials, sometimes we can't help but point out that, oh, there's a grammatical error here or a spelling error here, and we don't want people to feel they're dependent on on us doing that function for proofreading. So sometimes when we send it back to them for revision, we try not to uh, outline everything specific. We just recommend, hey, you have a few grammatical errors, please fix them, and try not to spoon feed everything everything
Right.
all in one go.
So, how can this role effectively manage Sir Pao and effectively manage and leads team to achieve high levels of performance and maintain a culture of quality?
Well, I guess that's really part of with well, that's two. I guess that's two different things with maintaining quality. So I think they're speaking. Your question's more from a quality assurance standpoint, right? So I guess it's really going to boil down to, well, what are your firm's KPIs? So what does success mean for the organization, and how does that translate to success for the individual team members that make up the wider company? So I think that the onus on that is also on on the leadership of the firm to be clear with what do they how does what did they do or what their team does contribute to the company's success, and what that success means. How does that translate to better, maybe benefits or better working conditions for those involved in contributing? So with compliance, ours is really more on the back end. So it's more on making sure that how we get to achieving those goals, we do it properly. We do it in a way that doesn't put us at risk. Uh, because sometimes you reach the goal, but if you reach the goal in a way that isn't proper, you could get fined, right? And then that just balance it, and that just negates some of your accomplishments, or you get put in a freeze where you can't do further business until you rectify what caused the violation in the first place.
Right. And how can you effectively advocate, for resource allocation and investment in quality initiatives with your organization?
Well, I think I've been able to make that argument before, and it really comes down to being able to strongly make a case and present how were things being done before. So, like in the previous question, we talked about the pain points, right, and the process building. So you have to put that together, like in like two or three slides, just to get that make it more digestible for senior leadership to understand what's the pain point, what it's coming from, what's the tool or what's the software that you're suggesting that they shell money out and get for the firm, and how it will actually address the pain points, and what are some of the expected outcomes from making that change. So it comes down to, like, you need to say, you're essentially coming. It's like you're coming up with your own sales pitch, right? That if we do this, if we invest in X, we're going to get Y. So you need to be able to have the necessary data. You need to have the reports. You need to have even an SME maybe come in and back up your claim that what you're having this tool ultimately helps the company in the long run.
Someone wants to ask more personal questions, or if that's okay with you.
Sure.
She's actually asking what inspired you to pursue this career path.
So I think I it's hard to pinpoint any single point wherein where I kind of made that decision. But
Mm-hmm.
I think where it started was back a few years back when I was in having an interview for a supervisory role. So eventually got that role. But one question that the panel asked was, so they're going to give you three random words, and they wanted you to put them in order. So you
Mm-hmm.
have people, processes, and performance. So what they wanted to normally how everyone answers that question is, I want to put people first, then processes, and then performance. Because once I get my people organized, I can come up with the processes. Then I can expect proper performance. But my answer was actually wrong, but well, not quote unquote wrong. So my answer was I wanted to have the processes first. Then I'll get the people to follow
Mm-hmm.
that process so they're not chaotic, and then I can expect performance. So even though my answer was wrong, I guess they that person said they
They
liked my
loved it.
explanation. Yeah, and
Right. Mhm.
ultimately, even though I was applying for a position that was essentially leading people because it's supervisory,
Mhm.
that kind of got me thinking that maybe I would prefer to be dealing with processes versus being in a leadership role. And eventually, I guess that's where my career took me, where I wanted to take a look at the processes more involved more. Like
Mhm.
probably I'd say my role right now is more 70% just looking at processes, keep making sure they're working as intended, and the 30% is the one where I'm actually working with people to explain what needs to be corrected or what's new and what training needs to be done. So I guess that's the point where that started my path transitioning from
That's so interesting. So it's not really planned out, Sir Pao, no?
yeah.
Right. So in terms of career advancement, how can professionals in quality and compliance roles identify and seize opportunities for career advancement, as what I've mentioned, within your organization or in broader job market?
Well, I guess it comes down to you need to decide first what's your chosen field. Where do you want to broadly develop your career? So that's the first step, just the direction. So, do you want to go to healthcare? Is it law, or do you want to stay with financial services? Then further narrow it down. Okay, what role do you want to be in a individual contributor role or a people management role? Do you want to be on a personal uh on a individual contributor role wherein it's more of you have your KPIs, you're measured, or do you want to be in charge of a team where you motivate others to deliver? I guess what it comes down to is before you advance or before you move in any direction, you need to figure out what direction you want to go to
Yes.
first,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
So uh, if you fail to set up that career track, you're gonna end up moving in different directions without any uh, plan in mind. So once w- so it like I guess to sum up what I've mentioned before, it helps that you have your network because not only
Right.
can you exchange best practices, even your network will introduce opportunities your way, or vice versa, right? If there's an opening in your team, then who else would you want to fill that than someone you've worked before and someone you know who can deliver and make a positive contribution.
Right. And you've mentioned about the networking and all, because in networking, you can actually meet some mentors there, right? But
Hmm.
what are some effective strategies for professionals to seek mentorship and guidance from experienced professional in this field? To accelerate their career growth.
Well, I think the first challenge there is finding a way to meet those mentors, right? So it's easy to meet those like within your company, as you know, as because naturally these people would be either your supervisors, your senior employees, but sometimes you can find those in unlikely places. So I think one of my previous mentors wasn't even someone part of my reporting chain, and I got to know him because we were participating in a company event, and we were on the same team just for one of those icebreakers, and then we eventually started conversing from there. and later on exchanging insights on how we do things. So I guess especially from a remote setting, it helps if you join webinars such as this one. You get to see all the lovely people in the comments, so you get to see what's on their mind, what's in their conversation. So maybe you
Right.
can maybe you can figure you can check with them later after this. Say that, hey, I see you were thinking about this, or I see you had questions about this. Here's my answer in case you're interested. And it's like an electronic exchange of business cards. So maybe you might not have
Right.
earned. It might not even be a mentor directly, or it could just be even someone who has the same thought process, or someone who has the same concerns as you are, and you can have a wonderful exchange of information there.
Right.
And who
And
knows,
this
it
is
might even be
actually
someone you can mentor.
correct. And this is actually one of the great ways as well to get feedbacks, right? And speaking of feedback, how can this, leverage feedback both from superiors and peers to identify areas for improvement, and drive their career growth?
So I guess as the saying goes, like feedback is a gift. So knowing what you're lacking, knowing what you think you could, what others think you could be doing better, really helps set your direction on where you want to develop. So it lets you know what's on your blind side.
Right. And here's the last question, Sir Pao. I know you have so many things to do, because, well, in terms of like, as we talked about your role in the compliance, you've got so much, and I know you're busy, but this will be our last question for you. What advice would you give to individuals who are considering a career transition from other fields into quality and compliance role? How can they, what do you call this? How can they position themselves for success?
Okay, well, one thing that I would really want, just put, if I need to put it all in one word, just one: read. So when I say read, you need you want making a full circle here, like how when I described compliance earlier, right? It was just all about, you need to comply with your external regulators and also your internal firm's own requirements. So why read? So for you to keep track of outside regulators, or at least on how it affects your firm, you need to be taking a look at all the different discussions, even proposed regulations, there are all the different publications. You need to read them from front to back, and understand them fully and then on how it could affect your organization. And then, like I also mentioned before, that if you want to be in quality assurance or compliance, one thing you need to have is credibility, and you build that credibility by being the SME so by SME I mean the subject matter expert in your chosen field or career, because you need to have that to be able to compel others to believe you or to follow what you're saying. So it ultimately comes down to reading also what's the playbook for your team, what's your written policies and procedures that's specific to your firm, because sometimes a firm could have stricter guidelines than what's actually required by regulators. So you need to know what's the minimum required by your regulators, and what's the separate minimum required by your company itself. So if you're able to digest all that, if you're able to find the time to read executive summaries, join webinars, use that opportunity to build your network and read their feedback, or read their analysis on how they came up with certain decisions or policies, then that's how you can set yourself up to be to have a successful role in quality assurance or compliance.
Right. So
Short but hard.
as yeah, so as a summary, as a compliance officer, you're the rule enforcer, as what you've mentioned, right? A rule enforcer keeping your company on track. So for those who are watching right now, if you're into that kind of uh, role that you want to do in the future, I mean, do it. You basically, correct me if I'm wrong, Sir Pao. You set policies, monitor controls, and investigate any shady business, right? So basically, your
Yeah.
job is to to really protect the company and ensure everyone plays by the rules. So it's a really tough gig. I might say it's a really tough job, but vital for a smooth and ethical operation. So yeah, thank you. I think that's about it, Sir Pao. Thank you so much for this wonderful talk with us and for this insights. I know our viewers right now has a better view and understanding of what you usually do. So again, guys, if you're into this j- uh, well position or role, read and build network. So there you go. Thank you so much, Sir Pao. Is there anything you want to promote or anything you want to say to our viewers now?
None in particular, but I guess just stay the course. And thanks very much for having me, and I appreciate the opportunity from Tatch.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much, Sir Pao. And there you have it, guys. Here we have a very insightful talk this week. And please tune into our other upcoming episodes for the Gen Z show. Once again, this is Jamie. I'm your host, and see you on Monday. Thank you, guys.